These 5 vintage-inspired chronographs deserve your attention. Let me tell you why. There's a lot of ways you can use a chronograph, whether you're timing your daily work commute, calculating your driving speed, or even how long your steak has been on the grill. There's something satisfying about using your watch for more than just the time, engaging the side pushers, and watching the mechanism jump into action. And aside from that, they just look really cool, none more so in my opinion than vintage chronographs.
One and only Paul Newman of Paul Newman.
It is history now! 15,000,000.
Sadly, so many of the vintage icons out there are far out of reach. That's where the ever-growing vintage-inspired market comes in, to save the day and cater to true enthusiasts with similar aesthetics, without the unattainable price tag. Enter Nivada Grenchen, more specifically the Chronomaster Aviator Sea Diver Broad Arrow. The brand was established in 1926, but was recently revived under the stewardship of 2 ambitious entrepreneurs following some hard times during the quartz crisis of the 1970s and 80s. Their goal? To reimagine the brand's most successful models, starting with the Chronomaster and another model called the Antarctic. In doing so, they've kept all the design elements the same, while upgrading what they can to prepare these watches for the modern collector. They've created an excellent catalog of faithful reissues, including the Chronomaster, which is the watch that initially put the brand on my radar in the first place. Nivada released the Chronomaster in 1963, outfitting it with everything one could possibly need for adventures on land, at sea, or in the air. There was a 5-minute countdown, a 60-minute rotatable timing bezel, a tachometer scale, and substantial water resistance. Of course, it also had stopwatch functionality, furnished by a mechanical hand-wound movement. Fast forward to today, and that watch looks a lot like it did back in the 1960s, including the same 38mm case size and a similar jumbo-style crown. One fun update you won't see on the original, though, is the interchangeable bezel system, which was inspired by the 1960s Colorama 6. The entire bezel pops off without tools. You simply pull it off with your fingers and swap it out for one of the 5 bezel colors included with the watch. And at just over $2,000, it's fairly approachable for most collectors. Also, if you're interested in this watch, you can find it and the rest of the chronographs listed in this video at the Clicky Bezel store, linked in the description below. Sticking with Nivada, another watch worth noting is the Chronosport Mecaquartz, a revival of a 1970s prototype. If it reminds you of the Rolex Paul Newman Daytona, that's because the dial on the original prototype was also made by Singer, complete with the dial maker's signature Art Deco style subdials. The company also made an automatic version of this watch, which will run you around $2,500, but this model is nearly identical at just $530 with the Mecaquartz movement and a tri-compact style layout. The automatic version only has 2 subdials. So what is Mecaquartz anyways? The movement here is furnished by Seiko and combines quartz technology for the main timekeeping function with similar components as a mechanical chronograph. The result is a watch with accuracy of quartz and smoother chronograph functionality. At this price point, I have to say the hybrid movement and Paul Newman design codes certainly make this watch worth your attention. Like Nivada, the next brand on my list also experienced some setbacks during the pesky quartz crisis, Vulcain. You might already be familiar with the Vulcain Cricket, which made history in the late 1940s as the first wristwatch with a mechanical alarm. It featured a second caseback that amplified the sound, giving the alarm its signature chirp. Nearly every US president since Truman has been gifted one, earning it the nickname the President's Watch. Sometime in the 1960s, Vulcain merged with a few other brands, creating the Manufacture d'Horlogerie Suisse Vulcain, or MSR. Like many other companies in the industry, the group would eventually fall on hard times later on during the quartz crisis. But Vulcain eventually bounced back and is currently doing business in Le Locle, Switzerland. That brings us to today, and a somewhat newer release from the brand, the Chronograph 1970s. As you might have guessed, the watch is modeled after a watch in Vulcain's archives, featuring a similar 38mm case size and a double-dome sapphire crystal meant to resemble acrylic. And then there's the unique step case inspired by the original 1970s model. It has a slim, polished middle case sandwiched between a tapered and brushed bezel and caseback. At 12.4 millimeters thick, it sits nicely on the wrist without sacrificing the dynamic feel of the original. It's a big win for the brand, in my opinion, as it nails the balance between vintage and modern design elements, including the contemporary Sellita SW510 hand-wound movement inside the watch with the moderate 63-hour power reserve. It's a little pricey compared to the rest of the watches on my list at $2,750, but it's well worth the premium. My next pick is a manual wind Panda dial chronograph from a newcomer in the industry, Baltic, which found success on Kickstarter a few years ago. The French company has been making waves since then with some seriously impressive vintage-inspired watches. Case in point, the Scalegraph Classic Panda. This watch upped the ante a bit for the brand by using a Sellita movement, specifically the manual wind caliber SW510, like the previously mentioned Vulcain Chronograph 1970s. It's more expensive than other non-Sellita models from the brand, but well worth the premium in my opinion, to boast the prestige of a quality Swiss-made movement. Baltic initially released two variations of this watch, one with reverse Panda dial and the other with the classic Panda dial, like this model I have here. The dial is a light beige color with a finely grained texture, superluminova, and large black subdials. The aluminum bezel, crosshair subdial at 9, and dome sapphire crystal drive home the vintage aesthetic Baltic was going for here. For well under $2,000, you're getting a Swiss-made manual wind mechanical movement that's a serious value play for the Scalegraph Classic Panda. The last watch on my list comes from a small micro brand based in Los Angeles, the True North Watch Company, which was founded by Shane Russick, a wildlife photographer and avid vintage watch collector. At the core of the brand's mission, to create affordable, great-looking neo-vintage watches. And when I say affordable, I mean well below $300 for a Daytona-esque watch like the vintage Rally Timer. I first came across the company when they collaborated with Eric Wind on a fun Uno colorway chronograph, and since acquiring one myself, have been a fan. The vintage Rally Timer certainly pays homage to the Rolex Daytona, but is in no way a direct copy. It features a similar tri-compact layout, but with the distinctive True North logo at 12 o'clock. Additionally, while the Daytona has a mechanical movement, this one relies on the same Mecaquartz technology I mentioned before that offers the benefits of quartz as well as the smoothness of a mechanical chronograph. To really get you into the vintage-inspired spirit, there's also the option of a rivet bracelet in either aged or non-aged lume. Overall, the quality at this price level is outstanding. The watch has a nice fit and feel on the wrist to rival some of the biggest names in Swiss watchmaking, and is expertly machined from the case to the bezel insert. And you really can't beat the price tag either, which is $265 as of the filming of this video. As you can see, there's certainly no shortage of well-made neo-vintage watches on the market. Whether you're into faithful re-editions or something a little different from the norm, there is a watch out there for pretty much everyone that won't break the bank. Do you agree that these chronographs are worth knowing? Let me know in the comments which one caught your eye. And as always, I'm Chris. This channel is Clicky Bezel, and I'll see you on the next one.